I always believed my friend group was solid, that we had each other's backs no matter what, until the day I realized that one of us wasn't watching our backs. They were holding the knife, and I was the target. There were 6 of us, inseparable since our first year of university. Then, one Sunday evening, Roxy vanished. She had left for a boba shop around 8 p.m., and we hadn't heard from her since. 3 days later, the city police initiated a missing person inquiry. It defied all logic. Just the night before, we had been in fits of laughter over her terrible karaoke performance, making plans for our spring break trip to the beach in our group chat. She was our vibrant core, the one who would video call you relentlessly from outside your dorm until you opened the door, declaring, "We're grabbing food, and you're joining." Without her, we all retreated to our rooms, and the group chat devolved into mere shared TikToks, devoid of any responses. After a few weeks passed, our circle attempted to reconnect, but Connor refused to discuss that particular night. He was the last individual seen with her. They had gone for boba together around 8 p.m. Yet, whenever the topic arose, he would completely shut down. "I've already conveyed everything to the authorities," he'd state, then swiftly change the subject or exit the room. This never felt right to me. Subsequently, Connor began to completely distance himself from us. His Instagram, however, painted a different picture: nightly gatherings, beer pong victories, spring break getaways, as if nothing had occurred. He would take days to reply to our messages, or simply leave them unread. The rest of the group presumed Connor was simply the most deeply affected. On that karaoke night, he had declared his affection for Roxy for what felt like the 10th time, openly in front of everyone. She offered him the same gentle refusal as always. "You know I care for you, just not in that way." He brushed it off with a laugh and ordered another round, but we all understood the depth of his feelings for her. Connor continued to ignore us, but there was one subject that would elicit an immediate response from him: the prospect of searching for Roxy. We would arrange search parties in the group chat, and suddenly he would break his silence. "You're just wasting your efforts. She likely doesn't wish to be found." We would circulate missing person flyers, and within moments, his reaction would be, "This is becoming obsessive. Just let her go." When her parents arrived on campus, he was conveniently too unwell to meet them. Weeks later, I encountered Connor at a party. He was heavily intoxicated, stumbling clumsily. When he spotted me, he seized my shoulder and drew me near, his breath reeking of spirits. "You know what's amusing?" he mumbled. "Everyone perceives her as flawless, but perfect individuals don't simply disappear." Perhaps she finally went somewhere she genuinely desired to be. The manner in which he uttered it, as if he possessed precise knowledge of Roxy's whereabouts, was the final straw. I had to inform the others. The group believed I was being overly suspicious. "He's struggling," Nicole asserted. "People utter peculiar things when they're grieving." Richard concurred, adding, "He adored her. He's probably just inebriated and spiraling." But then Nicole suggested we couldn't simply abandon him. Even if Connor was pushing everyone away, we needed to ensure he was all right. That's what true companions do. They appear, especially when someone is in pain. That Saturday afternoon, we drove to his residence unannounced. When Connor barely opened the door, Richard pushed past him. Connor appeared terrified. We explained our concern, stating we merely wanted to confirm he was okay. He repeatedly insisted we depart, claiming he was exhausted, hadn't been sleeping, and just needed to rest. That's when we heard a thud from beneath the floor. Connor's face drained of color. He attributed it to his neighbor relocating furniture and claimed the walls were thin, but Connor resided on the ground floor. The only area below him was the basement. He grew more agitated, practically ushering us towards the exit. That's when I observed 2 sets of dishes in his sink, 2 glasses on the counter, and 2 jackets hanging on the hook. Connor lived entirely alone. We departed Connor's house, but something felt profoundly amiss. The group huddled outside, and I persistently brought up the dishes, the basement sound, his panic. "Friends, there's clearly something amiss here," I stressed. But everyone seemed relieved we had finally checked on him. "See, he's alive, just processing his sorrow," Nicole remarked, almost cheerfully. "The poor fellow probably has someone over." Richard patted my shoulder as if I had been proven incorrect. Connor has always been particular about his personal space. At least we made an effort. Even the thud from the basement became a jest. "Old buildings produce sounds," Jade chuckled. "Connor is clearly in mourning. We fulfilled our role as friends." They were also content that they had been good friends. Check the box. Case closed. But I couldn't dismiss that thud we had heard. That night, sleep eluded me. I kept contemplating Roxy, Connor's conduct, and those 2 glasses. At 3 a.m., I made a resolution. I drove back to Connor's house and parked across the street, simply observing. His lights were still illuminated. Through the window, I could discern him pacing back and forth while on his phone. Then he disappeared from sight. A few minutes later, I saw him carrying grocery bags inside. 2 bags from a pharmacy. Why would someone require pharmacy errands at 3 a.m.? I remained until dawn. Around 6 a.m., Connor emerged with a refuse bag. He carried it all the way to the dumpster behind the structure, constantly glancing over his shoulder. He discarded it and quickly returned to his house. I knew I shouldn't, but I approached and peered inside. My stomach churned. On top of the pharmacy receipts were bandages, antiseptic, women's vitamins, and emergency contraception. But underneath, soaked in what appeared to be dried blood, was Roxy's purple university hoodie, the very one she wore that night. The sleeves were torn, as if they had been used to bind something or someone. My hands trembled as I captured photographs of everything. Then I heard Connor's door open above me. I froze. Connor's footsteps reverberated down the metal stairs, drawing nearer. My heart pounded as I swiftly took one more photo of the bloodied hoodie. The dumpster lid clanged shut louder than I intended. Just looking for bottles to recycle, I stammered. Connor's voice startled me. He stood at the base of the stairs, hands casually in his pockets, but his gaze was chilling. He knew precisely why I was there. I forced a laugh, tucking my phone into my pocket. Actually, I misplaced my wallet last night. Thought perhaps it fell out when I was walking to my car. The lie emerged shakily. Connor positioned himself between me and my car, obstructing the path. At 6 a.m.? That's dedication. His tone was light, but his body language screamed, threat. Why are you truly here? My phone vibrated. I glanced down to see Nicole's message. Where are you? Connor just called Richard, claiming you're harassing him. My stomach dropped. He had already contacted them before even confronting me. Look, I should leave, I stated, attempting to step around him. Connor moved with me, maintaining the block. Allow me to assist you in finding that wallet. He reached for my elbow, his grip excessively tight. That's when I noticed the fresh scratches on his hands, stark red against his pale skin. I yanked my arm away and sprinted towards my car. But as I rounded the corner, my heart sank. Richard's car was pulling into the lot. Richard exited, his face filled with concern. But the concern was not for Roxy or about Connor. It was directed at me. Hey, are you all right? Connor called and said you've been following him. We're worried about you. I'm fine, I replied, fumbling for my keys. Connor had caught up, playing the victim flawlessly. I've been trying to process everything, and then I awakened to find someone rummaging through my refuse. I've also been receiving hang-up calls all night. He massaged his temples as if suffering from a headache. I understand we're all coping with Roxy's absence, but this isn't healthy. Richard nodded in agreement. You have been acting rather paranoid lately. Perhaps we should all go get some breakfast. Discuss this thoroughly. I yearned to shout about the hoodie, the blood, the receipts, but I realized how it would sound. A university student purchasing bandages and sifting through someone's garbage at dawn. My phone held the sole proof, and even those photos merely showed me at Connor's building. I don't require breakfast. I need you to listen to me. I began, but another vehicle pulled up. Nicole's white car with Jade in the passenger seat. They exited swiftly, Nicole already speaking. Connor messaged our entire group chat, stating you've been harassing him since 3 a.m. She looked at me with a mix of pity and disappointment. This must cease. I was encircled now, 4 against 1 in an empty parking lot at dawn. Connor had orchestrated this perfectly. Jade spoke up, her voice gentle yet firm. I received a text from Roxy's phone at 4 a.m. It stated, stop searching for me. Perhaps we need to respect that. My mind raced. I had been observing Connor's window at 4 a.m. He couldn't have sent that message. Unless. May I see the text? I inquired. Jade showed me her phone. The message was indeed there from Roxy's number, but something felt off about the phrasing. Too formal for Roxy's usual texting style. Connor seized the opportunity. You know what? Let me show you all something. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through old messages. Remember freshman year after that party where Roxy won beer pong? He turned the screen towards the group. There they were, intoxicated messages I had sent 3 years ago, confessing my envy of how everyone instantly adored Roxy, how effortlessly she made friends. I had forgotten those messages existed, but Connor had preserved them. I'm not asserting you did anything, Connor stated, his voice dripping with feigned concern. But perhaps this fixation on me is truly about something else. Nicole reached for my phone. Let me see what you've been doing tonight. If you have nothing to conceal. I clutched it tighter, but Jade grasped my other arm. We're attempting to assist you. In the struggle, Nicole acquired my phone. She scrolled through my photos, her expression growing more troubled. You've been taking pictures of Connor's apartment all night and his trash. This is genuinely unsettling. Look at what's in the trash. I pleaded. Connor shook his head sadly. I discarded some old garments earlier. Are you going to claim I fabricated evidence now? He looked at the others. I've actually been documenting this harassment with campus security since Monday. I didn't want to make a significant issue, but you've been filing reports? Richard asked. Connor nodded. I have screenshots of her outside my window at 3 a.m. I didn't want to involve you all, but when she started going through my garbage, I had to call you. I lunged for my phone, desperate to display the bloodied hoodie photo, but I tripped over the curb, my phone flying from Nicole's hand. It struck the concrete screen first with a sickening crack. I scrambled to retrieve it. The screen was shattered. The photos corrupted into colorful static. This is truly concerning behavior, Sarah. Perhaps you should speak to a professional. The counseling center. I'm not insane. I immediately shouted, regretting how crazy that sounded. That's when campus security pulled up. 2 officers exited, and the older one looked directly at me. Morning, Sarah. We've received some complaints. He knew my name. Connor's reports had been thorough. Connor stepped forward, embodying the perfect concerned friend. Officers, I don't wish to press charges or anything. We're all just worried about her. She's been fixated on me since our friend disappeared. The younger officer consulted his notepad. Mr. Morrison showed us screenshots of you outside his residence at 3:17 a.m., 4:42 a.m., and 5:56 a.m. Because I observed him acting suspiciously. I protested. Richard shook his head. Sarah, you've been following Connor all night. That's not normal. We're all grieving Roxy, but this isn't the solution. There's a bloodied hoodie in that dumpster. I said desperately. Roxy's purple university hoodie. Just look. The officers exchanged glances. The older one sighed. We'll check. But you need to comprehend that this behavior constitutes stalking. Mr. Morrison would be within his rights to file a restraining order. Connor raised his hand. That won't be necessary. She's just enduring a difficult period. We all waited while one officer inspected the dumpster. He returned, shaking his head. Nothing but ordinary refuse bags. No clothing items. My heart sank. While Connor had been diverting my attention, someone had removed the evidence. This needs to cease, the officer stated firmly. Miss Chun, you must leave Mr. Morrison alone. No more following. No more calls. No more rummaging through his trash. Consider this your official warning. Next time, we'll have to take formal action. Nicole put her arm around me. Come on, let's get you home. We'll sort this out, but you need to stop this. I looked at each of their faces. Richard's disappointment, Jade's pity, Nicole's concern, and Connor's meticulously crafted worry with just a hint of satisfaction in his eyes. They guided me to Nicole's car, treating me like a delicate object that might shatter. As we drove away, I saw Connor in the rearview mirror, already on his phone, strategizing his next move. The group chat remained silent for the rest of the morning. But that evening, Connor's Instagram story appeared. He was at Roxy's favorite restaurant with Nicole, 2 plates of pad thai on the table. The caption read, supporting each other through grief. He had ordered Roxy's exact meal, the same spice level, the same additions. I knew because I had witnessed her order it 100 times. My phone, barely functional with its cracked screen, vibrated with unknown numbers. The messages were all identical. Photos of me at Connor's building tagged with unstable stalker and leave him alone. I checked my own Instagram. Someone had posted the security footage of me at the dumpster. The caption, #Justice for Connor when grief becomes obsession. It already had dozens of comments, all condemning me. My roommate knocked on my door that evening. Hey, so Connor contacted me. He's concerned you might be dangerous, and I have final exams approaching. She wouldn't meet my gaze. Perhaps you could stay elsewhere for a few days. Connor had known precisely whom to call. My roommate was a pre-med student. She couldn't afford any distractions during finals week. I packed a bag, my mind reeling. In one morning, Connor had transformed me from a concerned friend into an unstable stalker. Every action I had taken to expose him had been twisted into evidence against me. But the most agonizing part was realizing this had all been premeditated. Those reports filed before I had even suspected him. The group assembled before I could explain. The evidence removed while he diverted my attention. Connor hadn't just concealed what happened to Roxy. He had prepared for someone like me, someone who wouldn't let it go. And now I was the one who appeared culpable. I discovered Connor had recorded our entire group visit to his house. The video appeared on his Instagram story that night, meticulously edited to portray me as aggressive while he seemed composed and rational. Every instance I had raised my voice about the basement noise, every moment I pointed at the dishes, captured and cropped to depict me as unhinged. The comments flooded in from our mutual friends, all expressing apprehension about my conduct and support for Connor. My academic advisor called the next morning. Connor had contacted the administration about feeling unsafe on campus. She suggested I take some time off to concentrate on my mental well-being. When I attempted to clarify the situation, she interrupted me with practiced empathy, mentioning the counseling center's excellent grief support programs. The underlying message was clear: cooperate or face academic repercussions. I went to campus police with my narrative, but they already had Connor's report on file. The officer showed me the thick folder filled with documentation, screenshots, timestamps, witness statements from our friends. Connor had been constructing this case for days, perhaps weeks. Every interaction we had shared since Roxy disappeared had been carefully documented from his perspective. The officer advised me to focus on my studies and entrust the investigation to professionals. The storage unit receipt haunted me. I had clearly seen it in the dumpster photos before my phone broke. You store it on Maple Street, Unit 47, rented the day after Roxy vanished. But without the photo, it was just my word against Connor's accumulating pile of evidence that I was unstable. I spent the next 3 days in my car, too mortified to return home, too resolute to surrender. I parked near Connor's usual spots, observing, waiting for him to make a mistake. But he knew I was there. He would sometimes wave, that same concerned expression on his face, as if he pitied me. Other students began recognizing my car, pointing and whispering. On the 4th night, I followed Connor to a pharmacy. Inside, I watched him peruse the first aid aisle, filling his basket with bandages, antiseptic, gauze. My hands trembled as I approached the pharmacist after Connor left, loudly inquiring about what someone might need those supplies for, mentioning concealing scratch marks. Other customers stared. The pharmacist requested I leave. Security footage from that incident appeared online within hours. The caption read, "Stalker harasses pharmacy staff about innocent customer." The video showed me gesticulating wildly, while Connor calmly made his purchase in the background. Comments poured in about how I required assistance, how Connor was being so patient with someone who was clearly disturbed. Jade texted me that night. She had been conversing with Connor, and he had shared his theory that I had secretly been in love with Roxy too. That my jealousy over their friendship was manifesting as these paranoid delusions. She wanted to meet to discuss getting me help. I agreed, desperate for someone to believe me. We met at a coffee shop near campus. I tried to remain composed, logically presenting everything: the basement noise, the 2 sets of dishes, the bloodied hoodie, the storage unit receipt. But I could see her face altering as I spoke, concern replacing confusion. She kept checking her phone, and I realized too late she was recording our conversation. That recording surfaced on the campus gossip page the next day. Out of context, I sounded completely unhinged, ranting about blood and storage units, while Jade's voice remained steady and concerned. The post had hundreds of shares within hours. My reputation was ruined. Connor announced he was moving his grief counseling appointment earlier and invited the entire friend group for a support session. Everyone except me. Nicole posted about it afterward, commending Connor's resilience and openness. The therapist had apparently helped them all process their sorrow and the added pressure of dealing with a friend's mental health crisis. They met me. Nicole texted me privately that night. She couldn't afford to be associated with my conspiracy theories. Her resident assistant position covered most of her tuition, and the administration was already asking questions about her association with the unstable girl harassing a grieving student. She wished me well, but stated she needed to focus on her future. Just like that, my closest friend since freshman year severed ties with me. I realized then how utterly isolated I was. Connor had systematically alienated me from everyone who knew Roxy. The group chat removed me that same night. The notification popped up on my cracked screen. Richard removed you from Beach Trip 2024. Our spring break plans made with Roxy just weeks ago, proceeding without either of us. Desperation compelled me to break into Connor's car while he was in class. I found nothing but a parking receipt from You Store It, dated 3 days after Roxy disappeared. My fingerprints were now all over his vehicle, but I had a clue. I drove to the storage facility, my heart pounding with the possibility of finally discovering evidence. The receipt led nowhere. The unit number was smudged, and the facility had dozens of buildings. Without proper documentation, they wouldn't disclose anything about renters. I sat in their parking lot for hours, observing people come and go, hoping to spot Connor. He never appeared. Connor texted me that night. A simple message: "Stop this, or I'll tell everyone about Providence." My blood ran cold. The juvenile record I thought was sealed, a foolish shoplifting charge from high school that nearly cost me my university acceptance. Somehow he knew. I didn't stop. The next morning, my part-time job at the campus bookstore called. They were suspending me pending an investigation into concerning behavior reported by a customer. Connor had been thorough, contaminating every aspect of my existence. The anonymous blog post seemed like my sole recourse. I created "Is NYU hiding a killer?" and published it to the local community social media page. I presented everything. The timeline of Roxy's disappearance, Connor's suspicious conduct, the way he had systematically dismantled anyone who questioned him. Within an hour, the comments turned against me. People uncovered my true identity, linked it to the stalking videos, the pharmacy incident, the campus security reports. I became the narrative, not Connor. Roxy's parents contacted me after seeing the blog post. Connor had been visiting them regularly, becoming their primary source of solace. He informed them about my harassment, my deteriorating mental state. Roxy's mother sounded sedated, broken, asking me to please stop exacerbating their loss. Connor had turned even Roxy's parents against me. I discovered Connor had been visiting them daily, bringing groceries, assisting with arrangements, becoming the son they had never had. He had shown them my blog post as proof of how Roxy's disappearance was affecting her friends, how some individuals dealt with grief in unhealthy ways. They believed him completely. The truth struck me during one of those sleepless nights in my car. Connor wasn't just attempting to evade consequences for murder. When Roxy's parents mentioned having her legally declared deceased to find closure, they named Connor as the executor of her estate. I recalled Roxy mentioning once during sophomore year that she had updated her emergency contacts and beneficiary information after her grandmother passed. Connor had been her closest friend then, before his feelings complicated everything. My academic advisor called again, this time with an ultimatum: take a leave of absence for my mental health or face a disciplinary hearing for harassment. The choice was mine, but the outcome would be the same: my education derailed. I chose the leave. At least that appeared voluntary on paper. I started creating fictitious social media accounts to monitor Connor's activities. He was living his usual life, attending classes, going to parties, posting inspirational quotes about sorrow and recovery. Nicole appeared in more of his photos, their body language growing closer. They wore matching purple bracelets now in tribute to Roxy. The storage unit consumed my thoughts. I managed to obtain Connor's credit card statements through a dubious website, finding regular charges to use store it. But when I went to investigate, the unit had been emptied. The manager stated the renter had terminated their lease just that morning. Connor was always one step ahead. Richard finally responded to my messages, but only with an ultimatum: seek assistance for my obsession or lose his friendship forever. He gave me 24 hours to decide. I spent them sitting in my car outside the counseling center, knowing that admitting I needed help meant conceding Connor had triumphed. When the deadline passed, Richard blocked me on all platforms. My last supporter gone. I decided to employ Connor's own tactics against him. I publicly apologized on social media, admitting I had been struggling with grief and displacing it onto an innocent person. I admitted myself to campus counseling, telling them what they desired to hear about my jealousy, my inability to process loss, my fixation on finding someone to blame. Playing the role of being broken shattered something within me. Sitting in those counseling sessions, reiterating the falsehoods about my mental state, I began to question if perhaps everyone was correct. Maybe I was deranged. Maybe the blood on the hoodie was merely a stain. Maybe the basement noise was truly the neighbors. Maybe Connor was just a grieving friend, and I was an envious girl who couldn't accept that Roxy was gone. Connor magnanimously pardoned me after my public apology. He reached out through Nicole, suggesting we all heal together. The group welcomed me back with cautious warmth, as if I were a recovering addict who might relapse at any moment. At the welcome back dinner, Connor embraced me, his arms encircling me just a little too long, his breath warm against my ear as he whispered about moving forward. During dinner, Connor mentioned his plans after graduation. He was relocating to Seattle, Roxy's dream city. She had spoken about it constantly: the coffee shops, the rain, the music scene. Now Connor would live her dream, financed by her inheritance. The irony sickened me, but I smiled and nodded like everyone else. The counseling sessions became a weapon against me. When Connor requested my therapy notes for closure, claiming it would help him comprehend and forgive my behavior, the counselor supported his request. Those sessions where I had lied about being delusional, about imagining evidence, about projecting my grief onto an innocent person, all became part of Connor's narrative. Nicole began warning others that my recovery might be feigned. Even my surrender was suspicious. Now she would catch me looking at Connor during group gatherings and whisper to others. The fragile acceptance I had gained by admitting I was wrong evaporated. I was still the unstable one, just better at concealing it. When Roxy's memorial service was announced, I thought I would finally have an opportunity to bid farewell. But the restraining order Connor had filed during my stalking phase was still active. I couldn't attend any event where he would be present. And, of course, he was organizing the entire memorial. I was legally prohibited from saying goodbye to my friend. I persuaded Jay to assist me one last time. If she could get Connor to discuss that night, Perhaps record him saying something incriminating. We would have proof. She agreed reluctantly, more out of pity than conviction. I helped her tape the wire beneath her shirt, observing her hands tremble with apprehension. The plan failed instantly. Jade was too nervous, perspiring through her shirt despite the cool weather. The tape became visible when she reached for her drink. Connor noticed, but did not confront her directly. Instead, he appeared hurt, asking why she didn't trust him after everything they had endured together. Jade broke down and confessed everything. She showed Connor our text messages planning the recording, apologizing through tears. He comforted her, the perfect image of understanding. While she divulged every detail of our plan, by that evening, everyone knew I was still conspiring against Connor despite my supposed recovery. I located Connor's actual storage unit by tracking his credit card statements to a different "you store it" location across town. The unit was small, climate-controlled, paid 3 months in advance. I waited until 2 a.m., then used bolt cutters on the lock. Inside, I found cleaning supplies, bleach bottles, rubber gloves, and a rolled-up carpet with dark stains. My hands trembled as I took photos with a disposable camera I had purchased specifically to avoid digital traces. The next morning, I drove directly to the police station with the developed photos. The desk sergeant barely glanced at them before informing me that breaking into someone's storage unit was a felony. Connor had already reported the break-in. Security cameras had captured everything. I was arrested on the spot. My court-appointed lawyer explained my options while I sat in a holding cell. The prosecutor offered a plea bargain: plead guilty to stalking and breaking and entering, receive probation and mandatory counseling, or proceed to trial where Connor would testify about months of harassment. The storage unit photos were inadmissible as evidence since I had obtained them illegally. Even if they weren't, cleaning supplies and a stained carpet proved nothing. I accepted the deal. The judge's gavel felt like a final blow to Roxy's memory. My criminal record was now permanent. Connor sat in the gallery, head bowed respectfully, playing the victim one last time. Nicole held his hand for support. 2 weeks later, Connor successfully petitioned to become the executor of Roxy's estate. My conviction for harassing him actually bolstered his case. Roxy's parents, desperate for closure, signed the documents without question. The trust fund Roxy's grandmother had bequeathed her, intended for graduate school and commencing her life, now belonged to Connor. I attempted one last time to expose him. I created detailed timelines, mapped out inconsistencies, compiled every piece of circumstantial evidence. But who would believe a convicted stalker? My criminal record obliterated any credibility I might have possessed. Local lawyers wouldn't even return my calls once they learned about my conviction. Connor announced he was establishing a scholarship fund in Roxy's name at the university. The irony made me physically ill. He stood at a podium in the student center, wiping away tears as he spoke about honoring his best friend's memory. The administration praised his generosity. Students applauded. Nicole stood beside him, their matching purple bracelets catching the light. The restraining order meant I couldn't attend Roxy's final memorial service. I watched from across the street as hundreds of people gathered to say goodbye. Connor delivered the eulogy, speaking about Roxy's kindness, her aspirations to improve the world. He announced that the scholarship would specifically assist young women in pursuing their ambitions, just as Roxy would have wished. The crowd wept. I bit my tongue until it bled. 3 months after my conviction, I was summoned to a meeting with Roxy's younger sister, Victoria. She was 17, bore a striking resemblance to Roxy, but with a tougher demeanor. She had been investigating independently, she explained, not trusting the official account. She had discovered Roxy's journal hidden in their childhood room, pages filled with growing apprehension about Connor's possessiveness. We met in secret, meticulously planning. Victoria possessed something I lacked: a clean record and no criminal history. Together, we could construct a case. She had found witnesses who had seen Connor following Roxy in the weeks before her disappearance. Security footage from nearby businesses that the police had never requested, small fragments that might form a pattern. But Connor was always vigilant. He appeared at Victoria's high school, expressing concern about her unhealthy fixation on her sister's disappearance. He suggested grief counseling, offered to pay for it with the scholarship fund. When she declined, he contacted her parents, planting seeds of worry about their surviving daughter's mental state. Victoria's parents forbade her from contacting me. They had lost one daughter. They couldn't risk losing another to what they perceived as dangerous delusions. Connor had triumphed again, transforming Roxy's own family into unwitting accomplices. I found employment at a diner 40 miles from campus, where no one knew my name or story. I served coffee and eggs to truckers and travelers, saving every penny for a private investigator. But private investigators cost money I didn't possess, and my criminal record made it impossible to secure better employment. 6 months after Roxy's death, Connor graduated with honors. The ceremony featured a special tribute to Roxy, with Connor accepting an award for community service in her memory. He announced his relocation to Seattle, Roxy's dream city, where he had been accepted to graduate school, the same program Roxy had planned to attend. Nicole accompanied him. Their engagement announcement appeared on Instagram 2 weeks after graduation. She wore a purple stone ring, Roxy's favorite color. The caption read, "We know she's watching over us." The comments overflowed with congratulations and heart emojis. I continued investigating from a distance, spending my nights researching similar disappearances, searching for patterns. 3 years before Roxy, a girl named Min had vanished from Connor's high school. She had been his lab partner, described as sweet but reserved. The case went cold. Her family had moved away, shattered by grief. The parallels made my skin crawl, but correlation wasn't causation, and I was a convicted criminal. My probation officer warned me during our monthly meetings. Any contact with Connor, any attempt to investigate him, would violate my plea agreement. I would go to jail. I nodded and promised to focus on my recovery, then went home and resumed my research. A year passed. The diner job barely covered my expenses, but I had saved enough for a consultation with a criminal lawyer. She reviewed everything I had compiled and shook her head. Without new evidence, concrete physical proof, there was nothing to be done. My conviction tainted everything I touched. She suggested I move on with my life, but I couldn't move on. Roxy haunted my dreams, her laughter echoing in empty moments. I would catch glimpses of purple hoodies on strangers and feel my heart race. Connor's social media displayed a perfect life in Seattle, graduate school success, a beautiful fiancé, weekend hikes and places Roxy had marked on her vision board. Then one morning, a detective walked into the diner. Not for me, just for coffee and pancakes. But I overheard her phone conversation about a missing university student, Sammy, who had vanished after meeting a friend for coffee. The friend was distraught but cooperative, already organizing search parties and memorial funds. My blood ran cold. I wanted to scream, to grab the detective and explain about historical patterns. But my manager was observing, and I needed this job. I served the coffee with trembling hands, biting back words that would only label me as deranged. The detective left a generous gratuity. As I cleared her table, I discovered she had left behind a folder. Inside were photos from the new case. The missing girl looked nothing like Roxy, but her smile possessed the same trusting warmth. The friend assisting with the investigation was described as a graduate student, engaged, originally from New York. I committed every detail to memory before leaving the folder at the register, claiming a customer had forgotten it. The detective returned 20 minutes later, thanking me for keeping it safe. She didn't notice my hands trembling or the way I had memorized the case number. That night, I created an anonymous tip-line report about examining similar cases in New York, specifically mentioning Connor's name and Roxy's disappearance. I used a library computer 3 towns over, paid cash for fuel, wore a hat that obscured my face, but I knew it wouldn't matter. Anonymous tips from convicted stalkers carried no weight. 2 weeks later, local news reported that Sammy had been located. She had apparently left to start a new life, sending goodbye messages to her family. Case closed. The helpful friend who had organized the searches gave a tearful interview about the significance of mental health support. I recognized the purple bracelet on his wrist even before they revealed his name, Connor Morrison. My probation concluded the next month. Legally, I was free. But freedom meant nothing when I knew Connor was out there selecting new victims, refining his techniques. I had served my sentence while he lived Roxy's dreams with her inheritance. I packed my few possessions and drove west. Not to Seattle. The restraining order had no geographical limit, but to Portland, close enough to observe from a distance. I found another diner job, another inexpensive apartment. I kept my name off social media, paid everything in cash, became a fan to myself. Sometimes I would drive past the Seattle University where Connor studied, careful to remain off campus. I would see missing person flyers for young women who had vanished without explanation. Not all were connected to him. Couldn't be. But the pattern was evident for anyone willing to look. Sweet girls, trusting souls, the kind who would believe a friend would never harm them. I thought about Roxy every day. How she had trusted Connor completely right until the end. How she had probably been bewildered when her best friend transformed into something else. I wondered if she had cried out for help. If she thought we would come looking. We had. Just too late, and in all the wrong ways. The burden of failure slowly crushed me. I had possessed the evidence in my hands, literally held proof of Connor's culpability, and I had bungled it so completely that I had become the criminal instead. My relentless pursuit of justice had made me the ideal foil, the unreliable narrator in Connor's meticulously constructed story. 5 years after Roxy disappeared, I still work in diners, still reside in cheap apartments, still check missing person reports with a sickening sensation in my stomach. Connor now holds his PhD, teaches undergraduate psychology at a respected university. His social media displays a perfect life, beautiful wife, academic achievements, volunteer work with at-risk youth. He delivers talks about grief and healing, utilizing his experience with a friend's disappearance to connect with struggling students. Sometimes young women go missing from his university. They are usually found, usually fine, usually embarrassed about causing worry, but sometimes they are not found at all. And when that occurs, Connor is always present to console the community, to organize searches, to articulate eloquently about loss and hope. I document everything from afar, compiling files that no one will ever see. My criminal record ensures that I am the stalker who lost her mind when her friend vanished. The cautionary tale about allowing grief to become an obsession. Connor ensured that. The cruelest irony is that he was correct about one thing. I was envious of Roxy, not of her popularity or how easily she made friends, but of the purity with which she perceived the world. She believed people were fundamentally good. That friendship held something sacred. That conviction cost her, but she maintained it until the end. I no longer possessed that belief. Connor stole it along with everything else. Now I serve coffee to strangers and monitor the news for familiar patterns, knowing that somewhere out there, another trusting girl is meeting her best friend for coffee, laughing at his jokes, not noticing the way his smile doesn't quite reach his eyes. My phone vibrates with a news alert. Another missing student, this one from Connor's university. The article mentions a helpful professor organizing search efforts. Someone who comprehends the pain of losing a friend. I close my eyes and see Roxy's face, perpetually frozen at 21, forever trusting the wrong individual. There's nothing I can do. Connor ensured that. He won completely, obtained everything he desired, Roxy's money, a flawless existence, and the capacity to perpetuate his pattern without suspicion. He destroyed me so thoroughly that speaking the truth sounds like insanity. I pour another cup of coffee and observe the rain falling on Portland streets. Somewhere in Seattle, Connor is likely comforting another victim's friends, constructing another file of evidence against anyone who suspects him. The cycle persists, and I am powerless to halt it. That's the true horror. Not merely that Connor ended Roxy's life, but that he transformed her demise into a weapon against anyone who cherished her enough to seek justice. He made me the antagonist in Roxy's narrative, the deranged friend who couldn't let go. And perhaps that is what I am now. Perhaps that is all I will ever be. But I continue to watch. I continue to document. Not because I believe justice will prevail, but because someone should recall the real Roxy, not the perfect victim Connor fabricated. Someone should know that she detested pad thai, despite what Connor orders in her memory. That her favorite color was actually green, not purple. That she was planning to terminate their friendship before she disappeared, weary of his possessiveness disguised as affection. These minor truths are all I have left of her. They are not evidence. They won't bring justice. They won't prevent Connor from harming others. But they are real. And in a story built on deceit, sometimes that is all that truly matters. I conclude my shift and walk to my car, checking my mirrors out of habit. Connor's restraining order is still active, will be forever. He ensured that, too. I am legally barred from ever approaching him, from warning his future victims, from doing anything but observing from a distance. As history reiterates itself, the rain intensifies as I drive home. My windshield wipers maintain a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat, like footsteps on metal stairs. I will never cease hearing those sounds. Never cease seeing Roxy's blood-soaked hoodie in that dumpster. Connor seized everything else, but he cannot take my memories, no matter how much they inflict pain. Tomorrow, I will serve more coffee, check more news alerts, add more documents to files no one will read. It's not justice, barely even resistance, but it's all I have remaining. Connor won completely and irrevocably. All I can do is bear witness to his triumph.